Welcome in, everyone, to Betting Weekly Live. It is Thursday, the 1st of May, and a very, very warm UK here. Very warm north of England. Steve Wyss, joined by James Eastham. I heard you sweating a bit over there across the Pennines today, James.
Yeah, we're both in the north, aren't we? I'm in the northwest of the UK. You're in the northeast. We have amazingly hot temperatures for this time of year at the moment.
Yeah, very, very hot. Welcome in, everyone. Noah Goodman, Ming Chung, Foxy, Matt Carr 30, good to see you. Daniel Lucani as well. And yes, it was a good start, Ming. A bit of a different intro compared to yesterday. What have we got coming up on the show today? We've got a Premier League match to preview, actually. We've got Nottingham Forest Brentford. There's a Norwegian game kicking off in just an hour's time, Rosenborg in action, and then right into the meat of it, Europa League and Conference League semi-finals. We're going to be breaking down each game, looking at the outright market as well still. So stay tuned for your best bets. I've got a lot of picks today. I think you have as well, James. Certainly leans across the board. So we're really looking forward to it, aren't we? It's going to be tasty.
Yeah, plenty of... I say plenty of games, Steve. Obviously, it's fewer games than we've had. We've been through all the rounds, haven't we, when we were having 16 teams and 32 teams. So we're down to semi-finals now, but still plenty of picks and plenty of bets and leans to look at for the matches today. Yeah,
I'm just going to find my notes. We're actually going to start with the Premier League game to get us up and running. It's not often me and you get to talk about the Premier League together on a show. It's Nottingham Forest against Brentford. Nottingham Forest are plus 120 with Bet Rivers to win this game. The match, of course, means a lot more to Forest. Some people have suggested that Brentford are already on the Premier League beach. And I can see that point. Plus 215 for Brentford. Forest form has been a bit patchy, though, it must be said. Plus 250 for the tie. Over 2.5 goals is as big as minus 127, which at this stage of the season and in the Premier League, some might consider that generous. And then we've got player props and stuff across the board as well. I mean, I've got a really interesting angle on the corners here, which I'll talk about soon. But in terms of the money line, this looked about right to me, I must say. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it looked about right to me. I'm not so sure about Brentford being on the beach myself. It's obviously very convoluted and complicated in the Premier League, isn't it, as regards trying to work out who's going to qualify for Europe. There's still lots of permutations that can work. You know, it could be as people talking about, it could be as many as 9 or 10 teams getting into Europe, depending on who wins the FA Cup and who finishes where. And so I think if you're Brentford, I think maybe if there was 1 or 2 games left, maybe they would have written off their chances. But I think with 4 or 5 matches still to go, I think my view is they'll probably play flat out here. I mean, stand to be corrected on that, but I think they'll have a pretty good go. I would agree with you about the money line, Steve. I think it looks about right. I think Forest at plus money rather than minus money makes sense to me. I know they've had a good season. I know they're above Brentford in the league, but they haven't been amazing or outstanding recently, and Brentford have been pretty good away from home. So yeah, my view on the money line was it looked about right. I quite liked the look of overs. I did notice that Brentford's games away from home against teams currently above them in the Premier League table, as Nottingham Forest are, have been fairly high scoring. I think 4 of 6 have gone over 2.5 goals, and both teams to score yes in 5 of 6. That's Brentford, as I say, away from home against teams above them. So maybe have a look at the goals. But the money line for me looked about right. So I don't have any picks or leans on the money line or on the overs for that matter.
Yeah, 96% of the money on the money line is on Forest. 62% of the over-under money is on the over. There's been a significant player prop bet here. Elliot Anderson over 1.5 total shots, plus 240. 4-figure bet there on a prop, which is quite a generous price. What does everyone like in this Forest-Brentford game? Put in your best bets. I'm just going through some of the comments now. But welcome into everyone who's joined in the show. I mean, that match, yes, Barcelona yesterday, I must say, me and Nigel did get the under 3 very wrong. Not the first time that Barcelona and unders hasn't gone very well for me. We'll have to wait and see if you can actually find some profit at the weekend in that market, James.
Yeah.
Stay tuned to Betting Weekly Extra Time for more of that. But I mean, yeah, I'm just looking at some big bets yesterday. There were some big losers again, unfortunately. Barcelona -1 on the Asian handicap, 5-figure bet there that lost. Also, there was unfortunately a $4,000 loser on Inter Miami against Vancouver Whitecaps, over 1.5 Miami goals in that one. But we move on, like I say, to this Premier League game today. I like a corner angle. You're going to talk about some player props, and do you know what? There was a match on, I think it was Spurs Forest recently. It was on, I think, a Monday night, and Lewis Jones was on the show. And he made a very, very good point about the corners with Forest games. And they do not win the corner battle very often. To be perfectly honest with you, neither team win the corner battles very often at all. Brentford, I mean, both teams only average about 4 corners per game. But check out these stats for Forest corners in the last few games. So the last 5 games, this is the corner battle they've lost. 2-6, 1-7. 1-7, and that was Everton at home. That is really strange. They had a 4-4 tie on corners against Villa, and then 3-10. So they're not just losing the corner battle.
Wow.
By miles, absolutely miles. Now, I must say, Brentford have also lost the corner battle in 4 of their last 5 games. However, they have actually racked up more corners in general than Forest. 4-5-3, 5-3, 6. So I know this match is going to get played. Brentford are probably going to have more possession. They don't always have it in every game. Forest average the least possession in the Premier League, 39% of the ball. So, and nothing changes, home or away. They suck teams into this, and they'll go on the counter-attack. And I think that's the reason I think they do lose the corner battle so much. They often get ahead early in a game, defend, counter-attack. And the Forest, actually, they have a really good long throw as well. They actually would rather have the long throw than the corner. Weird. So I think Brentford most corners here, plus 118 is worth looking at. And do you know what? On the corner handicap here, -1.5 corners, plus 185 for Brentford, if that continues. Like I say, both teams not used to winning the corner battle, but in this instance, I do think that the Bees can get down that route. Now, you're looking at player props in terms of shots. Who do you like?
Yes, I am. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense what you're saying there on corners, Steve. And I think these games where maybe you can't see anything on the money line, it's a time to look at the prop markets. It's the player shot on target markets that I'm looking at on this game. Yohan Wissa, Bryan Mbeumo have been excellent up front all season, as we know. For Brentford, I know they've been very popular with the guys on the Premier League show as well. It's worth underlining just how prolific these two strikers have been. Mbeumo and Wissa, they've got 34 goals between them for Brentford in the Premier League this season. If you look at it as a breakdown per minute, I think Bryan Mbeumo is scoring every 165 minutes, Yohan Wissa scoring every 155 minutes. So pretty similar stats, both very prolific. And it's not really a pick or a lean for me, but I did note that if you put Wissa and Mbeumo in a same game parlay over 0.5 shots on target, so that's both of them to have over 0.5 shots on target in a parlay, that will pay out at plus 148. I thought that's not bad. Plus money price for players not to score, but just to have the shot on target, and you'd only need 1 each. So if they start, which we think they will, and they play as they played most of the season, I think you'd get a fairly good run for your money there. So I'd maybe have a look at that, but not any picks or leans for me on this match.
Yeah, it's well known that a large percentage of Brentford's goals scored are netted by, obviously, Mbeumo and Wissa. I'm a massive fan of both players, to be honest with you. I mean, I've, like you, followed Mbeumo back from the days of, I think, Troyes was his first club. Yeah. Maybe one before that, I'm not sure. Wissa from his Lorient days, Ajaccio days. You know, I think he's a brilliant finisher, underrated player. So, yeah, I think some really interesting angles there that we can get involved in. Another player, just I want to add before I go, and this is Forest's big defender, Nikola Milenkovic, -109 for a shot. He's actually only had 2 shots in his last 10 games, but this guy's so tall, they always aim for him. I think some of the opposition have now cottoned onto that, and it's given some space to some other people. But from a throw-in or corners, hopefully they don't get many corners. But throw-ins, free kicks. This guy's such a massive unit that I just feel like he should be able to rack up an easy shot from a header. And you know what? Often when he does if you give him time and space, he could score a goal as well. Nikola Milenkovic, he's worth watching out for. Just -109 for a shot, small bet on that game. Well done to everyone in chat yesterday. There was a lot of talk about Dumfries to have to score an assist or to score to assist. And, he absolutely creamed that game yesterday. So congrats to those in chat. There was some good winners on the show. Nigel was winning on the corners yesterday, James on the unders. And Rafinha did the business for him as well. The Viking did the business for me in the Norwegian game. Paul Laguna, welcome to see you. He's excited, 25-1 Inter Milan ticket on the outright. He's enjoying that. And yes, my cat Cricket is here. Quite a shy cat, not often seen on screen, but she is here to keep me company today. Let's move on. Someone did mention in the chat we want to get into the Norwegian game, and you've done some research actually on this, James, as well.
Yes, I have.
Yes, I'm interested to see what you think about this. Is Rosenborg against Kristiansund. The lineups will now hopefully be out for this game. Now, unlike the last 2 days where I tipped up Malmo, I tipped up Viking on the handicaps, and they covered. This is a very similar odds for Rosenborg, and I'm not sure they deserve such clear favouritism. Kristiansund are not as bad as the two teams that have been away from home in the last couple of days. In fact, -420 on Rosenborg just would not interest me really too much at all. There's a couple of player props that I am interested in here, but you mentioned on a message to me earlier a lean, and I quite like this lean, James.
Yeah, well, I thought maybe you could explain to me why the goal line, Steve, is set where it is. You obviously know a lot more about the Norwegian top flight than I do, but I just listen, I don't follow this league closely, so I came at it from a statistical point of view, but I did notice that Rosenborg have played 4 games so far in the Norwegian top flight, and those 4 games have produced only 6 goals, so all 4 of them have had under 3.5 goals, and Kristiansund have played 5 games, and they've been higher scoring, but 3 out of the 5 have had under 3.5 goals as well. So I was slightly surprised to see the goal line set at over 3.25, and under 3.25 is the outsider of 2. Under 3.25 is -110. So I kind of understand that if you just look at Kristiansund's games so far, but I don't really understand it if you look at Rosenborg's games so far, which have been so low scoring. So, as I say, coming at it as someone who doesn't follow the matches, doesn't watch the matches, but looking at it statistically, it seemed to me that under 3.25 goals here at -110, if Rosenborg were able to dictate how the game went, and it follows the pattern of their matches so far, then under 3.25 goals at -110 might look like a pretty good price. Don't know what you think, Steve, but that was my view of it, looking at it from a statistical point of view on the goals markets.
I do agree. I actually had Rosenborg win to 0 as a lean here. I quite like the under 1.25 first half goals as well. This is a grass pitch which is played, and this time of year, the early games in Rosenborg are often lower scoring. The pitch actually, to be fair, looked to be playing quite well the last game. It was a 0-0 against Bodo. Nothing really happened. Why are Rosenborg better defensively this year? The goalkeeper's had a good start. Tangvik. They've got a big centre-back called Nemsik, who I really rate. He's quite hard to get past. And I think they've been more disciplined defensively. They've actually completely thrown me with the lineup. I've just seen the lineup. There's full-scale rotation here. So 2 of the players I was going to have for props are not even starting now. I don't know how much of a scouting hat you keep on these days, James, but if you prime sort of scouting days, everyone would be interested in some of these players. Sverre Nipan is strong, massive Man United fan. He's really linked with Man United this summer. He's on the bench, wonder kid. But there's like 4 or 5 players that normally start that are on the bench. The prop I'm going to have to go with now for this game is Marius Broholm to score at any time. I think this is, I'm just going to find what his price is. But my gut feeling here is I think Rosenborg win, but not by much. Kristiansund are actually a side who often given me problems in the last, 10 years, really, to be full stop there. One of them teams that don't tend to serve me too well. But I'm just interested now in the goal scoring. Yeah, Broholm is at plus 165 to score at any time. I mean, it's gone with Noah Jean Holm, who was actually at Stade Reims on loan. You might remember him. I don't think he ever scored there. He's not actually had a minute, I don't think, in the Eliteserien this season, but he scored 7 goals in a cup match recently in an 11-1 victory. So, let's see if he can bring that to the table here. But I have to say, I think it's a really good pickup. Sometimes, you've got to look at the stats, break down the metrics. Under 3.25 goals could be a good option here. Rosenborg have got players on the bench who might do all right. I'm going to take Broholm. I actually play Eliteserien fantasy, James. I'm actually 376 in the world right now out of 50,000 players.
Not bad. Not bad at all, Steve.
I'm the 13th best in England in the game currently. But I forgot to change my team ahead of the deadline. I wanted to put 2 Rosenborg players in. Couldn't decide who. And then I forgot about the deadline. Broholm was one of them players. So you can bet your bottom dollar he goes big in this round, can't you? Yes. So that's why I'm going to back him. I don't mind if he scores if I've got my money on it. But Rosenborg, as I say, Broholm to score any time. James under 3.25 goals. Yeah. Maybe check out the under 1.5 first half goal line as well. But let's get into the real meat of the show. The Europa League and Conference League. This is what we've been discussing all the Thursdays this year. And we're into the semi-final stage now. And some huge games today. Really excited about this. Europa League, Bodo Glimt go to Tottenham, and Athletic Bilbao host Manchester United. And the winner of those 2 ties will obviously make the final. And the final is in Bilbao. So Athletic Bilbao are actually, obviously fighting not just for this trophy, but they'd love to play a final at their own stadium. We'll save the Man United game for second, but we'll stay on Norwegian territory here. Bodo Glimt plus 850 to win the first leg at Tottenham, minus 360 on the money line, plus 525 for the tie. Spurs at minus 455 to qualify. I've got to be honest, I think Bodo Glimt at plus 300. I think there's worse bets than that. I'll tell you now, Tottenham, for me, have to win this first leg, because I believe next week, Bodo Glimt will beat them in the second leg in Norway. So, quite how Tottenham approach this one, I'm not entirely sure. There's some big team news, which you might mention here, James, as well. But where is the value in leg 1 in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium?
Well, I put out a tip on the newsletter that went out, BetRivers newsletter at the beginning of the week, on Bodo Glimt, plus 1.75 Asian handicap for me was the bet, which was minus 113 at the time. I think they're minus 130 now. So there has been some support for them. They've not been great away from home. You have to say that in the Europa League this year. I think they've lost 5 out of 8 of Bodo Glimt, just 1 win and 2 draws, but they haven't lost by more than 2 away from home in the Europa League. I know people talk about them being very much a home side. I get it. It makes a lot of sense. And they don't, as I say, they don't have a track record of winning games, but they haven't always lost by a lot. They lost 3-2, I think it was at Manchester United back in November. They lost 2-1 at Twente. They lost 2-1 at Olympiacos. Yes, they did lose 2-0 at Lazio, but they've kept it fairly close and fairly tight in some of their games away from home in Europe. And I personally don't think Tottenham are very good at the moment. And I know they're focusing everything on this, so you have to take their performances and their results in the Premier League recently with a pinch of salt, because they've been very much been saving themselves for this competition. But I think Bodo Glimt will be fairly confident they can cause some problems tonight. And will that translate into a win? No, I don't think it will. Even a draw might be beyond them, but I do think they've got the potential to make it a competitive game in North London. So that was how I saw it. As I say, I went with that on the newsletter at the start of the week. Bodo Glimt plus 1.75 Asian handicap. You may end up losing half your stakes. If Tottenham were to win by a couple of goals, that's what would happen. But I think they should be competitive. And, they know as long as they stay in this tie, like you say, Steve, they'll be quietly confident about the return fixture next week. So I personally would be looking at ways to maybe get against Tottenham here rather than siding with the home team.
You couldn't trust Tottenham, could you? At those prices, either to qualify or just to win the first leg, minus 360. I mean, if you placed money on that and you lost, you'd be really having to second and twice think about yourself, your decisions that you're making, really. However, I know some people are put off Bodo Glimt today because of some suspensions. 3 guys are suspended: Helmerson And then, more importantly, two midfield starters, Håkon Evjen and Patrick Berg.
Yes.
Now, I do believe, in my personal opinion, Patrick Berg is the best player in Scandinavia. It includes all the Denmark teams playing at the clubs right now. He's a massive player. I can't remember the last time he missed an important game for Glimt. So let's see how they cope without him. They might do all right. They've got a very unique system which works with them. The players will be well coached. And but that is no doubt a big loss, Patrick Berg. Also doubts defensively. Bjørtuft could be an injury doubt, and Blomberg on the right wing as well. That's not such a problem because they've got players who can fill in there. I just wonder if Spurs might self-destruct at some point. You know, they like overcommit. We know what Ange Postecoglou's tactics are. If it's, I think he will feel he has to win the game. He's got schooled before. The one time he played Kjetil Knutsen at Celtic versus Bodo Glimt, he got absolutely schooled 5-1 on aggregate. Like, that was a big. It might be a terrible matchup tactically for Ange Postecoglou. He's got better players now, but
yeah, he does. I think also it's not a terrible matchup in terms of what Tottenham are looking to do, but it's not ideal either because they're clear favourites. And when you're staking so much on one tournament and you're not playing particularly well, as Tottenham aren't, then I think it puts you under a little bit of pressure because you can't excuse going out to massive underdogs. Now, you can if Bodo Glimt play really well and deserve to go through. But what I mean is almost from a PR point of view, Tottenham are under real pressure to win this because of the draw. If they were playing Athletic Club in the semi-final, it'd be a slightly different take on the game. But it's a case for how they handle that. They put a lot on this competition and they've got the easier side of the semi-final draw on paper, certainly. So it's going to ask a lot of them in terms of their character, I think, tonight, and in terms of their mental strength to make sure they get a good win, because everybody knows they're going to find the second leg tricky. So I'm really interested to see how Tottenham handle that, on top of how well they actually play against visitors who have got absolutely nothing to lose here. They've done historically well to get this far. As I say, they've not been outclassed for me away from home in Europe. They've not always won. In fact, they've rarely won, but they've not been outclassed. So very interested to see how Tottenham handle the particular pressure that comes with this first leg.
Yeah, and the biggest bet on the game with the sportsbook, someone's been obviously looking at the newsletter, James, $7,300 on Bodo Glimt plus 1.75 on the Asian handicap. So they're following you in there. In general, most of the money is on Spurs, as you would expect. A lot of public money will come in for Spurs, 94% on the money line. 79% of the over-under money is on the over. I think it is likely to go over. I think both teams probably score. That's been floating around as a good bet. I could see, if I had to put a scoreline here, I think the 2-1 win for Spurs may well be very, very likely in the fixture. There's a player prop that I'm very interested in. And someone's put down who's going to replace Berg in midfield. Well, definitely one player who will be starting is now Sondre Fett. Now, he used to be a mainstay in the team 2020, 2021. Then he had an injury, and now he's been used as this he's like a Swiss Army knife. He plays everywhere, midfield, wing. He can even play up front. But he's, I think, going to replace Berg, and he's the one that's going to get forward. He's incredibly with Bet Rivers, and I cannot believe this price will last. And, this is a volatile market, but he's plus 138 now just to have a shot, over 0.5 shots. That should be definitely minus money, in my opinion. This guy rarely plays 90 minutes. When he does, you would expect him to have a chance at some point. He's about plus 400, I think, for a shot on target, plus 380. Sondre Fett. I think he's massive value in both markets to have, a shot or a shot on target. I think it's a brilliant player prop bet there. And the other player I think that will replace Evjen in midfield, apparently it's going to be Sondre Auckland, who has not played many games for Glimt since he moved from Viking last season. He's not had many minutes either. Whether or not they start him, I don't know. Very talented young player, but that could be an area where Spurs maybe do take advantage perhaps, but let's see. Other players you might want to look at here, Jens Petter Hauge is going to cut inside on the left-hand side for Glimt, and a plus 148. That's just too big, really, especially if Spurs do play the high line. What is your predicted correct score for the first leg, James?
My correct score is 2-1 Tottenham.
Yeah, that's the way I see it as well. And I totally agree. There was a comment that Captain Slugger put up. If Tottenham go to Norway with nothing but a big win, then they're out of the competition. I agree. Bodo win the second leg for me. definitely. So I think Spurs have got to get not just a win tonight, but by more. Whether they feel that way, I don't know. They managed to draw against Frankfurt and go through. That's not going to happen this time. That is one of the toughest places to go in Europe. And Glimt will be at full strength in their midfield with Berg and Evian back. Okay, let's just have a look at some of the other comments here as well. Dave Clark says Spurs and over 2.5. A lot liking this. Both teams are scoring over 2.5. You wouldn't put people off that, really, would you, James, in this sort of match?
No, you wouldn't. I think, we know Tottenham are going to go for it and are going to try and get that first leg league, and it might leave them a little bit open at the back. So keep an eye out for that. I mean, Bodo Glimt away from home. I've said they've not been great in terms of winning games, but they did score at Olympiacos. They scored at Nice. They scored against Twente. I think they won 2-1 at Braga, and they scored twice at Old Trafford. So there's a record of them scoring. And I think, the goals markets, even if they went to win the game, could be a way of backing Bodo Glimt or one of the overs markets or both teams to score or something like that.
Maninder asked, are there any good foulers in the Glimt side? The midfield of Spurs often draws them. Well, I say look at the two new guys coming in, Sondre Fett, possibly Auckland, and then the captain, Ulrich Saltnes, will probably sit deeper, take one for the team literally as captain. He may well be a player to look out for, maybe even in the cards market today, Ulrich Saltnes actually, and the fouls market as well. But I mean, overall, go on then. Over the two legs, James, who do you think will go through? Forget odds for a minute. What's your prediction to qualify?
I think Tottenham will go through. I would not be surprised though if it went to extra time or penalties. I think it'd be really close over the two legs. I just feel Tottenham will make it, but in terms of if you were to include the prices, that would obviously indicate that Bodo Glimt are the value pick, right? Because they're much bigger to qualify.
If it was Spurs against Bilbao, and this was a question on there, what odds would you have Spurs to lift the trophy, do you think? Because Athletic Club would be favourites. Yeah. They're at home, and they're the better team, really. I mean, I'm thinking, for me, Spurs would be, what, plus 150 odd to lift the trophy? Plus 160?
Probably. We should say Tottenham are actually currently favourites to win the competition. They're plus 175. That's because they've obviously got what is seen as the easier semi-final draw. But if they were to make the final and it was against Athletic Club, well, they'd definitely be plus money and they'd be outsiders, you would imagine. If it was Tottenham Man United, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because you got
that's
two
a pick 'em, surely, wouldn't it?
You would think so. You would think so. Two teams in the bottom half of the Premier League who are staking everything on this tournament. It would be almost a 50-50 call. But if it was Tottenham Athletic Club of Bilbao, then you would say Tottenham maybe 140, 145. I don't know, something like that.
Okay, well, let's get into that. The second semi-final then here. Athletic Bilbao against Manchester United. Minus 112, both are to qualify here. I think there'll be loads of different opinions about that. Some will see Bilbao as huge value. Some will see Man United as value, depending how you rank and rate these teams. The Sam Mamez is going to be absolutely rocking for this one, James, isn't it? It really is. Yeah. And Manchester United, I've got to be honest, I said in the last round, didn't I? If they actually make it through, Man United plus 265 to win on the night, by the way, the tie's plus 220 and the over under goal line. This is generally around the 2.25 Asian line, under 2.5 goals at minus 162. I said if they got past Lyon, I would give them a bit more respect. So I'm going to give them, I'm not actually writing Man United off here. They went to the Basque Country and got a draw against Real Sociedad. And they've played well in the Old Trafford games recently. But I think Athletic Bilbao are a different class to Real Sociedad, really. I think it's going to be a really tough ask for Man United maybe to leave here avoiding defeat myself. I'll be looking at Bilbao on a minus quarter handicap myself if I'm taking something on the main lines. You are very interested in the goals line here.
Yeah, I think it's a really close game. I found it quite difficult to call on the money line. I think both teams will go into it feeling as though their form in Europe suggests that they've got a really good chance here. And I want to say really good chance here, I mean on the first leg tonight. With maybe different objectives, I think Bilbao will look at it and think they've got a really good chance of winning. I think they've won 6 out of 6 at home in the Europa League so far, and they've beaten some fairly decent teams. They beat Roma 3-1. They put Rangers away 2-0. Rangers, of course, have done well. So I think they'll look at that 100% record and think we can keep that going. I think Man United will look at it and think we can avoid defeat because I think they're unbeaten in 6. They haven't won 6, but they're unbeaten in 6 away from home in the Europa League. Now, it's only 2 wins and 4 draws, but they drew at FC Porto, they drew at Fenerbahce, they drew at Real Sociedad, and they also drew away at Lyon. I personally don't think Manchester United have any real advantage in Europe when they play at home. That's just based on watching them. I don't think they really play any better at home. I don't think they're set up to be any more difficult to beat at home or more likely to win at home. So I think from their point of view, and they'll know that because they're the ones who've been playing the matches, I think they'll go into tonight's match remembering how they've done away from home and feel they've got half a chance of avoiding defeat. So I think the prices make sense on the match odds, on the money line. The more I look to this, the more I think it might be quite a tight game, because I think United will look at it and try and keep it tight. They'll know that Athletic Club are probably the most dangerous side they've faced so far, and they'll try and shut it down and stay in it for the second leg. So it's only a lean from me. In the end, I went under 2.25 goals, minus 117. So if there are no goals or 1 goal or 2 goals on the night, you're going to make a profit. There's no real statistical evidence for that in the games that they've played so far in this competition. Athletic Club's home games have been 6 of one, half a dozen of the other on the goal line, on the money line, on the over-under line. And United have had some low-scoring and high-scoring away games. It's more for me about how I think United will try and set up. And maybe it's one of those where when it's such a close tie, both teams maybe will be expecting this to be resolved in the second leg rather than the first leg. So I think it will be fascinating to watch, but I'm leaning towards a low-scoring rather than a high-scoring game here.
I think minus a quarter of a goal, Athletic Bilbao at minus 122. I think that for those, look, Nigel's come on there and said a few things about the game. Get all the under 3 money back from last night by taking Bilbao on the money line plus 114. I know Nigel's really likes Bilbao. I like them to win the game. This feels like 1-0 or 2-0 to me. I think Manchester United. The thing is, the way the books have priced this whole tie-up, it suggests that both sides are evenly matched completely. Yeah. The to qualify odds would suggest that. I think Athletic Bilbao are better than Man United in general. Yeah. However, the whole season is now on this for Manchester United. Athletic Bilbao are going to qualify for the Champions League. Man United aren't going to qualify for Europe unless they win this. So I feel that has kind of mattered a bit more for them. But they had an absolute miracle against Lyon. They have too many flat spots, I think, Man United. Like moments where they're not in the game, make mistakes. The goalkeeper, can't trust him. You just can't trust whoever's in goal either.
I would agree with you on that, Steve. I think they are the better side, Athletic Club. I think if you look at that Lyon game, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Lyon made mistakes. They were pretty open at the back in both games, and yet they threw it away. It was theirs to lose, and they lost it. Obviously, they had a red card. Corentin Tolisso got sent off. So although it's been quite understandably pitched as an incredible United comeback victory, if you just analyse coldly and calmly and dispassionately the performance, especially in that second leg at Old Trafford, it wasn't great. And against 10 men, it took until the end before they really started to show that they could break them down. So I would agree that Athletic Club are the better team. Certainly that to qualified price, which you've said is exactly the same for both teams, minus 112. I would be back in Athletic Club there. I've been on them to win the tournament since I think it was back in January on the newsletter, which I'm very happy to stick with. So, they're my team in that sense. And I think over the 2 legs, they're the better side and they should go through. But I think tonight, as I said, I think it might be a little bit cagey with both teams thinking it will get resolved in the second leg. I think if you're Athletic Club, by the way, you'll have seen that second leg in the previous round when Lyon went to Old Trafford. And I think they'll be fairly confident they can cause United really big problems next time out.
Yeah, it's. I think overall, Athletic Club should have enough. But like I say, this Man United team do keep getting results in Europe. 73% of the money is on Athletic Bilbao here. 65% of the over-under money is on the over. I agree with you. I like the under here more than the over, definitely. The 1-0 or 2-0 definitely screams to mind. In terms of team news for the game, both sides, there's not really a lot of latest news. I think Sunset is doubtful, isn't he, for Bilbao? Maybe even ruled out, but the rest of the squad, I think, is completely available. Xerxes ruled out for the rest of the season for Man United, isn't he? Scored, of course, in the away leg in Lyon. You know, he's been criticised quite a lot this season, but he did have a good game in Lyon. So they're going to miss him there. Charlie says Sunset he is a bit of a big loss. Really scored quite a lot of goals this season. Put down your best bets in chat. How many of you out there are actually backing Man United to go through? I'm really interested in that, because there was some people out in the chat in the Lyon tie who did back Man United, and fair play to you. You know, you believed in Man United, but I'm interested how many really do think that Man United will go through in this tie. Best of luck with that one, James. Someone was asking about the referee. We've got a Norwegian referee here. It's Espen Etzgas. He averages around 3 to 4 cards per game. Difficult ref to read. I'd be honest. It wouldn't surprise me if all 4 games in the conference in Europa went over cards tonight. It could go a bit silly, actually, especially as I think now the suspensions have been wiped off and stuff. But this isn't the match I prefer. I prefer to get stuck in with the cards in the Conference League, which we're going to talk about very, very soon. Okay, I mentioned the Conference League, didn't I? Are Chelsea going to march towards the this bit of silverware? Minus 250 now to win the Conference League. Real Betis plus 450, Fiorentina 6-1, and the Minnows Djurgardens 20-1 to win the Conference League. Would you have a few shillings on Djurgardens, James, or not?
No, I would not. I am sticking with Chelsea. Listen, I've been really strong on Chelsea all season. I think I understand some of the reservations people have been mentioning about them being such short odds to win the tournament when there were still 16 teams in it and 32 teams in it and even more teams than that in it. But I think they are the absolute standout team in the tournament. And I understand, why they not just short price to win it, but incredibly short to qualify from their semi-final against Djurgardens. Obviously, the big unknown with Chelsea, as ever, is the starting lineup. And, it starts to matter now because obviously we're at the business end of the tournament and in theory facing stronger sides. I know people will argue that Djurgardens are probably the weakest of the 4 left in it, but team news wasn't as big a deal when Chelsea were beating the likes of maybe Astana and Noah and teams like that in the group phase, and now it becomes a bit more important. So we don't know as we're broadcasting here who's going to be in the starting 11. I personally think they'll probably rotate a lot as well as they have in the past. They seem to be fairly loyal to the players who've done a lot to get them this far, which I understand, and I think is probably quite important in terms of squad spirit to keep faith with them to some degree. But listen, even if they rotate, I still think they're great value, I think, to obviously to get through this tie. I mean, they're massive, massive favourites to get through this tie against Djurgardens. But I think they're good value to win on the night. They're a pick for me with the Asian handicap minus 1.5. On the Asian handicap at minus 130, you'd need them to win by 2 goals or more to get to cash that. But I think they should do that. I think even if they rotate, they should be too strong. Just to give you a few stats on Chelsea, by the way, Steve. I mean, it's 5 out of 5 wins away from home in this competition so far for them, and 4 of their 5 away wins have been by 2 or more goals. So they're not just winning and squeaking through because they've rotated. They're winning big, generally speaking, away from home. Most recently, 3-0 at Legia Warsaw. Back in the group stage, there was a 4-1 win at Panathinaikos, a 2-0 win at Heidenheim. I think they'll be fired up to keep that sort of form going against the Djurgardens side, who have done incredibly well to get this far, we should say. And have done okay at home at times in the tournament. There was a 3-0 win against Paphos. There was a 3-1 win against Legia Warsaw. But they did lose at home in the last round to Rapid Vienna. And they lost at home in the group phase. I think it was to Vitória Guimarães. So it's a massive difference in quality for me here, even if Chelsea rotate as we think that they will. And I just think they'll get the job done. They're so close now to the final, and it's been such an objective, not just for the club, but for the players who've been rotating into this team to get this trophy won, that I'm not expecting them to slip up here.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to you, James, you've been on this Chelsea train all tournament, in nearly all the games that we've been able to bet on in the Conference League. And you're not getting off it. I mean, your pockets are too laden with the money, aren't you? You're off right now. You're sitting in the buffet car.
I'm weighed down. Yeah,
you're weighed down.
Listen, I think sometimes with these prices, you can just keep riding it. It's not always the case. You've always got to be analysing and reevaluating and be brutally honest with yourself when you've maybe spotted a trend that turns out to not be a trend. But I think this one has been, and I think it's still good to go. I mean, one other thing I would flag up on this game, Steve, which I did have a look at, was both teams to score yes. It's quite interesting this because it's minus 103, so you're getting close to 50-50 for that. Djurgardens, obviously, I don't think will win, but they have scored quite well at home this season. They've scored in 4 out of 5 games at home in this tournament. They've scored 3 goals against a couple of sides. And Chelsea, although they have been winning big on the road, sometimes they have conceded as well. I think they conceded against Copenhagen and against Astana and against Panathinaikos. So you might want to have a look at yes in the both teams to score market at minus 103. But personally speaking, I think you're safer backing Chelsea on the handicap.
Yeah, just looking back at some of the comments here, lots of Norway talk today on the show. Maybe we should have an AHA theme tune for some of my shows. It was Take On Me, wasn't it?
Sun Always Shines on TV.
Living Daylights. That was the Bond tune, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Timothy Dalton, I think. I don't think
it
was a particularly good. I don't think it was a particularly good Bond movie, but not a bad theme tune. Theme tune better than the movie, probably. And someone's made a point. Alexander Burn. This is a plastic pitch in Stockholm. Look, it's a sellout. I tell you now, the fans will bring the noise. For Djurgardens, this is maybe the biggest game they've ever had. Yeah, I can, the fans are going to give it absolutely everything, but unfortunately, the fans cannot win games for them on the field, and we do have to touch on the absentees that Djurgården have. I mean, there's several on the actual inactive list who are not qualified to play. They've had injuries left, right, and centre, especially in midfield. Schuller, I think, is especially a big problem there, missing out. Nino Zugay is another absentee. One player I do like for them, and this could be the player. I mean, you mentioned both teams to score. Yes, I actually think Chelsea will win this match to 0. I've got to be honest. But Tokmak Nguyen could get a shot on target here at minus 103. There's something about this lad. I think he's like 32 years old now. He's been around the block. He's a bit of an X factor. He's got a bit of flair about him. And I think if they are going to have a chance, he's the one it might fall to. But I mean, Chelsea have been involved in a lot of unders recently, James, especially in the Premier League. Don't really know what the fundamental metrics behind that. I think someone said the goalkeeper's been performing a lot better. And of course, the goals have been drying up for them as well. Cole Palmer's been pretty cold for quite some time. I mean, if I had to do a score, I'm going to say 2-0 Chelsea. Yeah. That's my correct score for the game. I mean, you think you might give Djurgården a goal? You think?
I'm going 3-1 Chelsea. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're still not wavering from Chelsea, obviously winning the competition. 99% of the money on the money line is on Chelsea for this game, and 59% of the money is on the under. So bettors are cottoning onto this now. They like Chelsea for unders at the moment. Yeah. A couple, one of the bigger prop bets on the corners, actually, under 6.5 Chelsea corners. 4-figure bet on that. Okay. Interesting play. That's the Chelsea game. One more match here. The cards. I quite like the cards here as well. The referee in charge, is Swiss referee. I just wonder if Djurgården might just go in too heavy here. The fans sort of sort of desperate for their players to get stuck in. And there have been a lot of yellow cards. I mean, the Paphos game was, I think, about 12 yellows. We know there was a lot against Rapid Vienna as well. So I do think over 4.5 cards is worth looking at here. A bit of an inconsistent Swiss referee. Michael Oliver's going to be in the middle for this next match and the final match that we're going to talk about. Real Betis against Fiorentina. And this really could kick off. I think appointing Michael Oliver for this fixture could be very dangerous indeed, because the cards might flow like confetti here if he's in the mood. Real Betis minus 136. Fiorentina are plus 380. Real Betis minus 167 to qualify for the game. I really like what is going on at Real Betis at the moment. I think there's a really good project going on here. They might even get into the top 5 in Spain, potentially. And I quite like backing them here, minus 3/4 of a goal to win the first leg. I think they're quite reliable. Fiorentina, away from home, I mean, they lost against Apoel. They only drew at Vitoria Guimaraes. They lost at Panathinaikos. Only just beat Stella 2-1, and that could have gone either way at the time. I don't trust Fiorentina away from home in Europe. I'm not saying over the 2 legs that they can't qualify, But I think Real Betis are going to win the first leg, James.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think it's a fascinating matchup. This, I mean, it's almost the ideal semi-final for the tournament, if you like, in that the tournament was really designed for teams like these two teams. If you look at where they are in their leagues at the moment, Real Betis are 6th in the Spanish league, Fiorentina are 8th in Serie A, so fairly well matched. Fiorentina are on 59 points from 34 games. Real Betis are on 54 points from 33 games, so very little to pick between them. And I think the prices are probably fair, actually, both on the night and also to qualify. Fiorentina plus money to qualify, Real Betis minus money to qualify, but not a great deal between them. Makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised to see Real Betis win the first leg. Because obviously, as you say, Steve, and we've said this on the weekly show as well, Fiorentina are not that reliable. I tend to look more towards the goals here. I think the goals trends going into this game are pretty strong, actually. So again, I would just look at the two teams' form in their domestic leagues. If you look at Real Betis first, 18 out of 33 games have gone overs for them in the Spanish league. That includes 11 out of 17 at home. Fiorentina in Serie A, 20 out of 34 have gone overs, and that includes 9 out of 16 away from home. Then in this particular competition, Fiorentina have had 4 out of 5 away games go over 2.5 goals, and goals for Betis at home as well. So over 2.5 goals would be a market I think is worth looking at. I think if you've watched these two teams this season, they're more likely to go for this, I think, than try and keep it tight. I don't think they're really designed in any way, these two sides, to keep it tight. I think it could be potentially over goals first leg and second leg, because it's just the way the two teams are set up. My pick on the game is actually both teams to score. I think a price of minus 118 on both teams to score, yes, in this game is pretty good. You can see the prices there. It's almost a 50-50 call. Both teams to score yes or no. I don't agree with that. I think yes is the clear favourite for me here, because as I say, both teams involved in lots of high-scoring games in their domestic leagues. And I think Fiorentina in this competition actually is 5 out of 5 away from home has been both teams to score yes, and it's 3 out of 5 for Betis at home. So I'm expecting this to be entertaining. I don't think either team are fantastic in terms of quality or consistency. Certainly Fiorentina, we've seen them have dips and troughs all season, really, haven't we, in Serie A. Sometimes they've looked really, really good, and then the following week they can be poor. So I think it'd be entertaining. Maybe the two teams trading blows, but actually struggling to dominate the game. And in the end, that sort of put me off either team on the money line and pointed me towards the goal. So it's both teams to score for me here. I think you'll get a really good run for your money at minus 118, because I'm expecting chances from both teams in this match.
Brad Betts Footy, thanks for your comments on the show. He's put some really good stuff in there.
Yes, he has.
There's some really good comments from a lot of people. Just like the last 2 days, there's been so many, I can't mention them all, but there's some really good stuff being said, some suggestions, SGPs, player props, and everything like that. Like I said yesterday, the chat were brilliant with Dumfries and stuff, especially. Real Betis to win and both teams to score, I would agree with that. I think it feels like an open game. I think the last time Betis played, there was quite a few cash on Bakambu. I don't know whether he's going to start or not. Isco is the safe bet to score or assist, but there's always a lot of rotation from Pellegrini here. He and some of these players don't always last longer than 65 minutes. It's quite good. I mentioned it before, especially when they got Cucho available for the La Liga games. There's quite a lot of good offensive players in this Betis side now, and Anthony's been firing as well. That's a massive bonus for them. So, but I do think Real Betis minus 3/4 of a goal on the handicap minus 103. I think that's a good bet. I do like over 4.5 cards. I think Michael Oliver, if you just look at his cards averages in the Premier League and in Europe, it's very, very consistent. This is a referee, and I've got to be bluntly honest, I don't think I rate him particularly. I think he gets wound up too quickly. He gives cards when he shouldn't, and then he lets stuff go when he shouldn't, which leads to more drama and all sorts. Drama follows this referee around. And, you've got a Spanish team hosting an Italian team. It's got to be cards. Cards have got to flow here, especially second leg, but I think the first leg as well. Let's just, go through the splits for this fixture. 88% of the money on the money line is on Real Betis. 60% of the over-under money is on the over. There's been a significant prop bet here nearly $3,000 on Fiorentina under 9.5 total shots, just shots, not shots on target, minus 118. I'm a bit like you, James. Fiorentina, I can never get them right.
Yeah.
They're neither here nor there. I actually, this sounds awful. I hope they get knocked out of this semi-final because I wouldn't want to see a team lose 3 straight finals. Yeah. I couldn't see them beating Chelsea in a final. So no. I hope actually Betis put them out of their misery before a final this time.
Yeah, and they might do. I saw a comment. Apologies, I missed the name there. But what are Betis and over 2.5 goals here? Well, if you put Betis to win on the night and over 2.5 goals in the same game parlay tonight, it's plus 155. Wouldn't surprise me if both of those cashed. I'm like you, Steve. Listen, I quite like to see Betis get in the final and just see something different. I saw a comment as well earlier. Someone saying that they think whichever of the two sides will get to the final, will beat Chelsea. I mean, listen, it's very different when you have the one-off showpiece final rather than the home and away legs, isn't it? It all changes. Obviously, Chelsea are going to be short price favourites against whoever they face here. But like you, I would like to see Betis go through this tie.
Yeah, and I think, as I say, this is a manager Betis have got who's won the Premier League before. So you've got to give him respect for that. In a one-off game, maybe they can bring something. I personally feel that the two teams are better of the two teams. Fiorentina do have that final experience, though, to give them a bit of credit as well. So, look, Chelsea, it will be toughest. It will be their toughest game. I mean, you couldn't have handpicked a better draw for Chelsea so far, could you? Either the actual fixtures in the league, the knockout rounds. Honestly, it's been so straightforward for them.
Yes.
But the final will be at least a somewhat competitive heat, I think.
Yeah.
Chelsea will be deserved favourites for it, but fair enough there. Okay, James, best bet of the day then. If you had to pick one bet today, what would you be going with? Do you think?
My best bet of the day, it's not actually Chelsea. It's often been Chelsea on these shows through the course of the season. It's the Betis Fiorentina, yes, in the both teams to score market for me. I think minus 118 on that is a really, really good price.
Yeah, I'm going back right to the top of the show. I really like the most corners. I can't get away from corners this week. Most corners for Brentford at plus 118, and a player prop that I really like is Sondre Fett. Just to have a shot for Bodo Glimt today, plus 135 with Bet Rivers. Shot on target plus 380 as well. Watch out for him going forward, replacing Patrick Berg in his role. But James, it was a great pleasure as always. We'll be back again for the second legs next Thursday. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, very much. Thank you, Steve, as ever. Thank you to everybody for the comments, brilliant feedback and views and information. And looking forward to much the same next week as well.
Yeah, if you're new to the channel, please do hit the like button, and it'd be great if you could subscribe to the channel as well. Do catch me tomorrow on Betting Weekly Live. Jack Wright's going to be joining me. We've got Premier League game, Manchester City Wolves. I'm going to pick his brains about all sorts of player props and angles like that. The Premier League show with Nigel, Jack, and Dan is already out, and I think Betting Weekly Extra Time will be on your podcast providers. So, all right, take care, everyone. See you next time on Betting Weekly Live.